Allah help you.
Alhamdulillah. Long time we have not having lunch together.
That's okay. So long you are busy.
Now the university is closed.
Yes, yes. But we go to the university, by the way, because in management we go as well.
Okay, okay.
We have to be there from time to time.
Alhamdulillah. Light is very nice.
Good,
Do
alhamdulillah.
you want to maximize it, Prof? Or you want it like that? That is okay also.
No, I can maximize it, no problem. Is that okay?
Yeah, nice, perfect. Okay, I think can we start? Can I say a few words before we start?
No problem, it's better. Oh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Indeed, we are so thankful to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Together with us, our dear beloved Professor Dawood Al Hidabi. For those who have not met Prof Dawood, he's so warm, so fatherly. We always met at the cafeteria, eat together once a while. Alhamdulillah. Prof has been with us, has been helping us both in university and the institute. Last first session, our online course in July, Prof delivered 7 series of talk on education from Islamic perspective. Now, Prof to conduct 4 hours intensive training on national influences from for new brothers and sisters who are new with us. Some are familiar name. We have met, we have communicated online before, but some are new. Alhamdulillah, though we are sad with this COVID-19 life, loss, economic opportunity affected, but Alhamdulillah, it also has blessing in disguise, where we have this new platform, online learning, where IIIT like to take this opportunity to use this technology to outreach to as many brothers and sisters as possible. So we are providing these online classes, online seminars, online discussion, so that everyone can participate. Prof, I always share with the brothers and sisters, you remember in the old days where you can go to the mosque and just sit down and listen to the scholars without pressure of exam, pressure of assignment. So Alhamdulillah, these are the culture that we want to bring back. So everyone can enjoy in their living room with their family or in their private place to enjoy our scholars, our top scholars. It's not easy to get a scholar like Prof. Dawood. As we have posted to you, Prof. Dawood is former president of University of Science and Technology, Sunnah, from 1994 to 2007. He's also the founder and president of International Association for Talent Development. He obtained his bachelor in physics and chemistry in 1997. And then he got his master from University of and master and PhD from University of Stirling. He is currently the professor at Kuala of Education at IIIM. Prof also at the same time helping the international office, helping the international students in solving their needs, their difficulties in the university. So, Prof, we have, as we have discussed, we have 4 hours session, 2 hours today, the next 2 hours tomorrow. We will leave it to you. I know you can speak for 3 hours non-stop, but please have mercy on us. Maybe we can last the next 30 minutes for question and answer. There are some input from brothers and sisters. Please do not use the chat box while Prof delivering his speech. Some of us are using handphone or small screen, so these messages appear on their screen, or some noise also. So, but we are open at the end of the session, all the input, all the questions. Don't be discouraged if we don't take your question. We will forward this question to Prof, and Prof will use it for future references, maybe for one article and this question. So without further ado, we invite our dear professor, our father, Professor Dawood Al Hidabi. Prof.
Thanks, Brother Shahran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Walhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I hope that my voice is clear. That is very important. Today, we will start with the first session discussing the methodology of educational inferences from the main sources of Islam, that is Quran and Hadith. Every specialist for every discipline, they look at Quran and Hadith for guidelines. And educationists are some of those people who tried and attempted throughout history to learn from Quran Sunnah how to organize and conduct teaching and learning. So our heritage is full of references talking about such kind of things, but mostly the Muslims were discussing fiqh issues rather than other disciplines or areas of life issues. We have to encourage and motivate our scholars all over the world to look at Quran, Sunnah, and the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and emphasize some of the guidelines, principles, and direction of their life. We are part of those people. Educationists are part of those people. Today we have to look at how can we infer, how can we deduct some of the guidelines and principles in the area of education. Well, I will start with three components in the introduction. Number one is to talk about the concept of education in Islam, because we are a bit different from others. Second, we'll talk about the aims or the characteristics of education in Islam. And then we will talk about the aims of education in Islam. Then we'll start discussing the methodology and give two examples. One example from Quran and one example from Sunnah, from Hadith. And maybe we won't be able to discuss all these things in one session. So the first session we'll talk about the first three components, and maybe tomorrow we'll be discussing about hands-on activities on references, inferences, and I'm sure you will be able to do some of your homework, and I will give you the hadith and the ayat, which I have tried to emphasize some of the educational inferences or principles, and hopefully you can read before you come tomorrow. So let's start. First of all, we look at education as a worship. As a worship. It is not just a practice to seek knowledge only. Seeking knowledge is a source of enhancing and strengthening our worship. So once you feel that what you are doing is a worship, then you are highly motivated, whether you are a learned or a learner, whether you are a lecturer or a teacher or a student. So we have to cultivate. And when we look at the Quran Sunnah, we have to conceptualize that what we are doing is the mission which conducted by the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself, that is teaching and learning with the Prophet and his companions as a teacher and learners. Also, we as Muslims are different from other philosophies which they derive their concept of education from, like behaviorists, like idealists, like any other philosophies. So other philosophy, they have their own concept of education. They have some sort of emphasis. Like cognitive psychology, they focus on the mind, developing the mind, because, and the behaviorists, they will discuss about what they can observe. So every philosophy has different emphasis. And we are different from others in 3 areas. Number 1 is the ultimate goal. Ultimate goals in Islam is different from others. Our ultimate goal is to worship Allah, to seek His forgiveness, to seek His pleasure, to be admitted to paradise, and so on. Second, the assumption about life and about human nature. So how we look at human beings and the nature of man is different from others. How we conceptualize the life is different. We don't look at the current life, but the life to come as well. So ultimate goals are different, assumptions are different, and also our motivation are different. So these 3 areas make us unique in the way we look at education and infer principles and inferences from Quran and Sunnah. Education from our perspective and philosophy is a holistic one, is a balanced one. So a committed servant of Allah should develop holistic personality. And he or she is considering himself or herself that he is taking care of the trust, and the trust or the amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life, the temporary life, and become responsible and accountable for that kind of trust in this life and the hereafter. Also, education means change, because Islam is trying to transform the students or the individuals in order to contribute to the development of their own families and societies and humanity at large, to realize the benefit and interest which is outlined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, education aims at helping students to perform effectively their roles, because the role of a Muslim or a believer in the Quran Sunnah is quite clear. What is the role of Muslims as individuals and societies? So our education system should prepare us as students to perform our roles effectively towards Allah. This is one of the key areas, towards ourselves, towards our families, towards our societies, towards our ummah, and towards mankind. So, education system should cultivate and develop holistic and balanced personality in order to be able to function and play your roles towards all these different components: Allah, yourself, families, societies, ummah, and mankind. Again, we have to reflect on that Islam had to lead, our education system in Islam had to lead students to ensure prosperity, well-being, happiness, and success in this life and the hereafter. So we are not focusing only on being happy in this life, but also to be happy as well in the hereafter. So our education system aims are different, and consequently the implementation and the design and development will be different. So our ultimate aim is Allah's pleasure, forgiveness through ikhlas, shukr or praise, and taqwa. Now also, our education system take into account through two types of categories of tasks we have to engage in as individuals and as collective community. Now the first one is called compulsory duties for individuals related to aqidah and rituals and so on. But the other part, which is a must as well, but rest upon the society. So the society is responsible collectively to fulfill what contribute to their needs, whether it is ضروريات, حاجيات or تحسينيات. And our education rests upon the families and society as well as NGOs. But formal education or schooling cannot be effective alone. That's why we look at the different agents in society which have great impact on our personalities and culture. That is non-formal education system like the media, the families, the non-government foundations, and masjids. The educational system is preparing the community of learners to be able collectively to perform the purpose of life according to Allah's guidance. So if we are claiming that we have to follow Allah's guidance, so our education system should be guided by Allah's commandments and His Rasul message. Otherwise, we cannot claim that we are the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our education system, since we are talking about holistic and balanced personality, has to talk in the process of developing and designing curriculum and education system, as well implementation. We have to foster everything and instill everything in the heart, in the mind, and behavior in order to realize our benefits and protect ourselves from harms. So that's very briefly, when we talk about education, we talk about such kind of elaborated meaning of education. Now, what do we want to achieve so that we can infer from Quran and Sunnah things related or relevant to these aims? Well, first, we base our education on Tawheed. So we have to know Allah and His attributes, as well as the pillars of Iman, internalize and act upon them in our daily life as students and lecturers. Now, our address is not for the students alone, but we are talking about the teachers, the lecturers, and the students as one entity, as one body. They integrate each other. We cannot separate them. We have to glorify Allah and develop one's relation to Him. As you could see that our emphasis is Iman now. So we have to inferences from Quran Sunnah how to enhance such kind of Iman. We have to learn how to know how to worship Allah with all our deeds and action, because the concept of worship is not ritual, but every act, everything we say or act for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with sincerity and taqwa. Also, we have to care, our education system has to care for learners in a holistic and balanced manner. So when we look at the university or at the school, we have to ask to what extent this education institution is taking care of holistic and balanced manner. Whether emotion or iman or intellect or behavior or application or realizing benefit. Do we consider all these things together in our education system and the curriculum? And also, the student has to learn how to earn livelihood. Halal living, halal livelihood. So we have also to include such kind of knowledge and skills in our education system. Relate knowledge to actions for achieving benefits for all. Because in Islam, there is a very strong correlation and connection and relationship between faith, knowledge, action, and benefits. All these four components have to be integrated in our education system. And when we look at the Quran, the Sunnah, we have to emphasize such kind of thing and how can we integrate them and how can we implement them. Also, we have to develop learning identity. Nowadays, we have a problem with identity. Because of the social media, because of anything, we have to cultivate the Muslim identity in the heart, mind, and action of our students and lecturers or teachers. We have to contribute to the societal development because there is no meaning for knowledge without impact on society. The Prophet ﷺ sought refuge in Allah from the knowledge without benefits. So benefits and knowledge is correlated. Develop student holistic and balanced personality. Employ knowledge and skill learned to play learners' roles more effectively towards Allah, Creator, oneself, family, society. So the education system has to be clear how every student and teacher play their role towards every component of our life. How we look and play our role towards our neighbor, our community, local community, society, towards our family. Is that included in our education system or not? Because we have to do education for life. Education for life, not only for a profession, but for life. And when we say life, we mean the short life and the long life. This life and the life to come. Also, tazkiyah, purification of the soul and heart, and gaining wisdom, which is missing in our education system, which is emphasized in the Quran and Sunnah. So we have to emphasize anything related, how to uplift iman and tazkiyah and soul and heart, and how to develop wisdom, the right decision for the right event to give us better impact, useful impact, beneficial impact for in our life. Also, one of the distinguishing factor between us and other secular system of education is the commitment to ethics, to virtues. So we have to be effective as human beings, positive and constructive citizen, not only to go from one level to another or to get a job, but also to be a constructive and positive citizen in your own society. And our student lecture should work together in order to perform such kind of role. Transform oneself and contribute to transform society. Now we have to ask ourselves to what extent we are transforming ourselves and our student selves, as well as contributing to the transformation of society. If we cannot transform ourselves, we cannot transform society. Allah will never change the state of people unless they change themselves, as it was stated clearly in the Quran. Be closer to Allah and achieve success on earth and in the hereafter. develop the sense of responsibility and shoulder the trust of Allah granted to human beings and utilize all resources, because all resources and creatures were granted to human beings so that they can utilize them effectively in their life here and also to get reward from Allah in the hereafter. In general, education attempts to develop community of learning knowledge. So knowledge, intellect, good emotion, soul, ethics, physical body, practical skills, professional knowledge and skills, social and cultural skills, and life knowledge and skills to live happily and successfully in both lives. That's, in short, what we would like to do in education. Now, let us move to the third part of education, which is the characteristics of education in Islam. Number one, first, that our education is based on Tawheed, Rabbani. It's based on the guidance of Allah. So education and curriculum have to reflect these core characteristics, regardless what subject we are teaching. Second, comprehensiveness and holistic and integrated education. So our education system and curriculum is comprehensive, holistic, and integrated. Whether in terms of the curriculum, the system, or even the personality we are aspiring to develop. So the curriculum has to balance between all personality components, individual and societal, material, spiritual, this life, the life to come, so that we have a comprehensive education system and holistic and integrated. Also, we are not idealists, we are realists. What we are doing is realistic and feasible, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the commandment to implement them according to our capacity. Allah will never give you a responsibility you cannot do, because He is the best knower. He knows what you can do because He is our creator. So whatever we develop in our education system based on Quran Sunnah is realistic and feasible to do and applicable to do. So we have to be considerate to the differentiation we have among our students and their abilities in order to be able to perform and implement our education system in a very feasible and applicable way. Also, education system delivered to learner what is not changeable. So there are something changeable, something not changeable. So what is constant is what is applicable across time, place, and culture. Particularly in matter related to Aqidah, Allah is one, whether 100 years ago or 1,000 later. Worship, ethics, and general guidelines for all types of walk of life. So the framework is unchangeable. It's constant. But the area of this is maybe 5%. What is unchangeable? So most of the things which are changeable occupy more than 90%. So, but at the same time, in most of the components of education is flexible. We can change a lot of things, whether it is the curriculum, the method of teaching, the method of assessment, whether, say, the training of teachers. Most of the things is changeable because time is changing. People's habit, and new knowledge is coming up. So time and place and geography might affect our work. What we have to emphasize from Quran and Sunnah is the guidelines, general principles. But we have to reflect upon not only Quran, but reflect upon our experiences and conduct a lot of research in order to be able to conduct our education system in a better way and more effective way. So we have constant and flexible. As I said, the constant is very limited, but the flexible is wide-ranging and wide scope. Also, one of the characteristics is that the transformation is gradual, whether in our own education system or the development of anyone. So we have to be careful in order to cultivate either the identity or develop knowledge. We have to be gradual. One of the most important characteristics of education in Islam is impact, social impact. We don't give emphasis on this characteristics in our education system, current education system these days. Our education system and curriculum have to lead the learners to consider the benefit of knowledge and skill they are learning. So our well-being as individual and societies depends on the benefit we gain from implementing the knowledge and skills we learn. And we have to encourage our student teachers to work together, to engage more with the society in order to deliver benefits so that they can contribute to the transformation of society to the best. That's why the ultimate goals of Islam is maqasid al-sharia. I tried to translate it to fit in the education system, so the commitment to religion in our life. So our education system should encourage and motivate our student teachers to commit to the teaching of Islam in our daily life. Second, develop and activate our intellectual abilities, our thinking, for the purpose of delivering beneficial purposes for our societies. Also, forming peaceful and harmonious families. We are losing our family structure nowadays because of many things. So we have to focus more and give more attention to the issue of family and how can we sustain the harmony and the peace inside the family. And our education system should play a role in that. Also, ensuring safety and security of individual and society, whether the physical safety in terms of health services or in terms of environment or whatever, and psychological safety from the depression and the sadness and stress and so on. Also, we have to focus on developing the economy, and students and lecturers should work together to learn knowledge and skills how to develop the economy of the country. That is not only during their time, but during their time at the university or in the school, as well as in the future, in their lifespan. Also, one of the characteristics, internationalization and humanism. Islam in nature is a global, international, and human religion. It was revealed for all mankind. It is a mercy for all mankind. So our curriculum and education system and the inferences we make from the Quran Sunnah should also be attended to in order to be able to cultivate such kind of characteristics, which is the, as I said, the humanism or globalism, but not in the sense of connotation of what is commonly used today. We have to know the connotation of Quran and Sunnah in the term of mankind or universalism. So Muslim learners are universal and humanistic by the virtue of the foundation of their Islamic education and philosophy. Again, I think I have talked about this. Education is a form of worship. Islam encourages learners to seek knowledge and education, which is an essential right and basic need for all human beings. It does not help learner to live in this life more effectively, but also to relate them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to live happily and successfully in the hereafter. So learning and education is considered as guidance which shed light and direct learner life to succeed in both lives. One of the key characteristics of Islamic education is ethics, or it is ethical. Education in Islam is rooted on ethics and good manners. Emphasis is given high importance in both sources of revelation. If you read the Quran and the Sunnah, in fact, the Prophet ﷺ said, indeed, I have been raised but to perfect good manners. So that is a core aspect of our education system. So Islam in general came to transform people's heart, mind, and deeds based on the word view. Consequently, education is the mechanism by which people are transformed. So we would like to use education to transform our students, to be the servant of Allah, and to have great impact in this life and the life to come. The Prophet's message is teaching education. So we know that da'wah is an education, is creating awareness. So what the Prophet did is really is education. So education is the mission of Islam. Now let us now move to the methodology. How to utilize Quran and Sunnah to help ourselves in order to get some of the educational principles and inferences. Before we start making inferences, Quran and Sunnah are our guidance for our life system. So we have economic system, social system, cultural system, political system, and so on. But we have education system. Every system has to derive their guidance from Quran and Sunnah. And this we have, if we believe that we have to get the guidance from Quran and Sunnah for education, so we have to think, understand, reflect, ponder in order to be able to get such kind of guidance. We have to be equipped with the necessary tools to be able to emphasize education principles. So there are some standards we have to adhere to in order to be able to make inferences from Quran and Sunnah. So we are in a bad need to guide our education system by a deduction process. What do we mean by inferences or deduction? It is an intellectual process to understand the meanings of the verses and hadith and infer the educational implication and principles from the revealed text and not from the interpretation. Brother and sister, when you want to make inferences, don't make inferences from the tafsir because it's a man-made explanation. You have to go to the original text of the word of Allah. But in order to understand that, you have to read several tafsir texts in order to be able to reflect upon the verses in the Quran to emphasize some of the educational implication for our education system. And that inferences might be simple inferences and might go to a deep inferences. high inference or low inference. But we have to know what are the standards and the process we have to go through in order to be able to infer the educational implication. Now, let me just give you this, which is somehow phases we have to go through while we are reading and understanding Quran and Hadith text. The 5 phases, number 1, recite. So we have to recite Quran correctly or read Hadith. So that's number 1, R, recite or read. I call it RURAB model. Second, understand. We have to understand the text through either the explanation of hadith of different ulama scholars, or we have to go and read several tafsir, old and new, because things are changing, the context is changing. So we have to look at the Quran through the context we are living in. 3, reflect. This is tadabbur in Arabic, tadabbur, to ponder and reflect so that you know what are the implications. So we are here making the inferences in this phase. And number 4 is act. It is not enough to make the inferences, but what inferences you made, it's just hypothesis to some extent. It's your own understanding. It might be true, might be wrong. So you have to make sure how to be more objective, and we will be talking about this later and also giving example. So we have to implement such kind of inferences. Then these inferences should have an impact in our education system. So when we say impact in our education system, it means that the learning outcomes were achieved. So if we are thinking of developing thinking, then thinking is developed. For thinking having impact on our society, the impact is there, it exists, and so on. So these are 4 steps we go through. So that's the interaction with Quran and Hadith model, we call it. Now let us talk what is required. What are the standards? Educational researchers, Muslim educational researchers, have to be competent in Arabic language sciences. Now the Arabic sciences are several. Not the language. Not anyone who can speak Arabic can make the inferences. They have to know the sciences of Arabic language. And there are several sciences of Arabic, not just the grammar, but others. Balagha, bayan, sarf, and so on. So one of the things is being competent in the sciences of Arabic. Not only in the science of Arabic of today, but during the Prophet life or even before, because the Quran was revealed during that time. So the only acceptable connotation accepted is when it was used then, not today. But you might ask me, we don't speak Arabic. How can we make inferences? I will go about that later. We'll talk about, because I have introduced something which is not ijtihad for one person. We have to make collective ijtihad from different disciplines so that we complement each other and integrate each other in the process of making educational inferences. Ensure that inferences are not conflicting with classical Arabic meanings of words and their connotation. That's what I said just earlier. Because some of the words, they change their connotation today. So in order to be able to know the exact meaning, otherwise you will have wrong inferences. Ensure that inferences are in line with Quran Sunnah. There's not conflict. You might come up with inferences which inconsistent with what Allah said or it was said in the hadith. Know the reason of revelation and the context. Now, it is very important to know Asbab al-Nuzul. Some Asbab al-Nuzul shed light to understand the text better so that you know how it is related to our life. Because Quran mostly came to solve problems in life. It's not a theoretical book. It came as a reflection of people's life as human beings. So knowing the reasons for revelation is very important to be able to understand the text better. So knowing the context of revelation is very important. Also from the criteria, know the different ways of recitation which might have different meanings. We know that Quran was revealed at least a minimum of 7 agreed upon ways of recitation. And the different recitation of some words in the Quran is not conflicting, but multiply the meanings. It gives you a variety of meanings. And that might help you to make better inferences. So you have to check whether the ayah you are reciting, there is different ways of recitation so that you can make use of it. Also, the researcher or the scholar have to be aware that some of the verses were cancelled. They had read, but we are not supposed to practice them. So we have to know them so that we might come across some of these cancelled verses and make inferences which we are not supposed to practice. Also, you cannot make inferences about education and you are not educationist. You are not involved in education. You have to be specialist in education or practitioner of education so that you can relate what you read to your own context. Have to understand the external environment context. Now also, it's good if you are from the same environment so that you can make your inferences related to the underlying factors and variables related to your environment and context. Maybe if you are in a non-Muslim country, might be different from you if you are in a Muslim country or majority Muslim country. If you are from Muslim country but more secular than non-secular, so that might affect the way you are making inferences. Also, you have to understand the external environment and the context, not only the context of education, but also the societal context. Also, you have to understand the relevant verses, the Prophet tradition, and Sahaba understanding. Now, in order to understand Quran, because Quran sometimes one ayah is explained by another ayah in another text, in other context, in another surah or chapter of the Quran. So you have to read all the ayat which are relevant to each other so that you have a more comprehensive inferences. Second, you have to read relevant hadith. And alhamdulillah, now it's easy whether to take it from Quran or Sunnah. It just, you have to know the keywords, and then you can search in the books of Hadith and Quran. What are the relevant keywords, and you can understand that, get them together. So know the relevant verses of that theme. So if you are doing a research, you have to see what are the relevant verses in the Quran related to your research, or in Hadith, or Muslim scholars across history. So the Prophet and Sahaba understanding. Also, many Sahaba interpreted the Quran based on what the Prophet said. So we have to know Quran is explained by Quran, Quran is explained by Hadith, Quran is explained by Sahaba. So that we can know the holistic nature of Quran and Hadith regarding what we are investigating. Also, there are mainly three methodologies used by Muslims, but for different areas. Number one is usul al-fiqh, mainly methodology for arriving Islamic rulings. So fiqh, so the methodology of rulings. But there is a component in that methodology called deduction rules. We have to read in general usul al-fiqh, but more particularly the deduction rules, because what we are going to do is a kind of deduction. Understand usul al-tafsir. Now, this is very important, methodology of understanding the meaning of Quran. And we have to read at least one well-known book or reference, at least to understand how to make or how to understand Quran. There is a third methodology called Mustalah al-Hadith, which is the methodology to understand the content of the Hadith and narrators. So it's good to know the basics in order to be used to enlarge your awareness and understanding when you look at the Hadith and understand the Hadith itself. Also, one of the criteria is understanding the works of Muslim scholars. I'm talking about Muslim scholars who wrote about education and researchers in the area of education relevant to what they are investigating across history from the time of the Prophet until today. So we have to know what Muslim has produced and generated, all generated knowledge relevant to our work. We go to the West to do literature review or systematic review or meta-analysis because it is available. Some of our literature is available. At least we have to go to what is available. Then you have to read several tafsir books, several hadith books, which talk about these particular verses relevant to your investigation. Because different mufassirun have different focus. Some they focus on Arabic language, some focus on fiqh, some on Arabic, different focus. Now we would like to draw your attention to give more focus to education. Read and understand the relevant hadith also. Then you have to state your educational inferences. It is preferred that there is a team of educational researcher. Now we are calling for interdisciplinary approach. We have to have teams in every country or even through internet, different scholars from different countries. And now I can see that you are many people. Let's establish groups of researchers who can read. One, he knows more Arabic, the other knows more about education, one more about, sociology and psychology and so on.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. Please unmute by mistake. Yeah. Okay.
I will try to wrap up very quickly. So we have collective educational inferences. And then we have to submit what we inferred as a team to other referees to review and validate our references, judges by specialists of Arabic language, tafsir, and educationalists. And then, based on their comments, we have to develop our inferences. And by the end of the day, what we are doing, it is still subjective because it is our own inferences. It is our own ijtihad, which might be wrong or right. So we have to subject these inferences to implementation. We have to conduct research in schools and universities to see to what extent it is useful and bringing in benefits and outcomes, so that we can disseminate this kind of thing to others. So we have to investigate the effect of the inferred knowledge in practice. If it was proved effective, we have to disseminate to others. Otherwise, we can improve it, and we have to use our mind and our heart to conduct research and to go back again to Quran Sunnah and also reflect not only on Quran Sunnah, as I said, but on our experiences in life. Because that's how we integrate aql and naql, revealed knowledge to the acquired knowledge, acquired through research and revealed knowledge through Quran and Sunnah. By doing so, we establish unique educational schools of thought, which will not only benefit Muslim, but humanity. So our aim, establishing a new school of thought of education, which would help humanity because it's based on revelation and objective knowledge. Now I will give you for 5 minutes very quickly, just to give you the taste, because the hands-on activity will be next week. But I will give you just one verse to give you the flavor of making inferences. What is the flavor? Well, I would like to draw your attention to the story of Musa and the righteous man in Surah Al-Kahf, from ayah 60 to ayah 82. Ayah 60 to ayah 82. So please read based on what I said earlier and come up with your own inferences for next week. I'll give you this ayah, one ayah alone, and we will discuss all ayat next week. In addition to hadith, the hadith is about the bankrupt. Who is the bankrupt? Al-Muflis, man al-Muflis, bankrupt. So there is a hadith about bankrupt. Please read it as well and make inferences from that hadith. So that's your homework. But let me quickly, in 5 or 10 minutes, finish this. قال له موسى, this is the beginning of the story. هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا. So Moses said to him, may I follow you on the condition that you teach me from what you have been taught of sound judgment. Look, if you look at this, Musa, now if we know the reason of the revelation of this ayah or this story, it was that Musa was a prophet and he's a very knowledgeable person. But he thought he is the most knowledgeable person on earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants him to learn a lesson about ethics, not to be proud of yourself. Arrogance is not good. So you have to go back and study. So Here, adult education. Here is ethics. Here is continuous education. Here is companionship of the student teacher. You need the companionship in order to learn. Here, the initiation from the student himself, going to the teacher. And he put condition on himself. And it's up to the teacher whether to accept his condition or not. Also here, he decided about what he wants. So the learning outcome decided by the student themselves. Here is individualized learning. Here is authentic learning. He went out, not inside the classroom. Here, the teaching and the discussion came between the teacher and the student. Healthy discussion. No barriers between the student and teachers. I can quote a lot of lessons from this only verse and see to what extent we are implementing such kind of inferences or principles stated in this verse alone. And he said, from what you have been taught is also very clear that the source of knowledge is Allah. So that bring humility, humbleness, respect for the teacher, appreciation to what the teacher is offering. And he said, have been taught of sound judgment. He wants to be guided in life through wisdom and guidance. So what we learn is to guide ourselves in life, not to get a certificate or a scroll. Look, brothers and sisters, when you look at one only verse, you can deduce 100 principles or inferences from one verse. It is us who are not using our mind. It is us who are not guided by the Quran Sunnah. We are looking for conceptual framework from the West, which all their theories based on secularism and materialism and certain different philosophies. Where is our heart and mind? Where is the conceptual framework from Quran and Sunnah for our education? So it's the time to establish school of thought for Muslims and humanity. We claim and we believe firmly that Quran and Sunnah will give us the framework, the conceptual framework for our research and priorities of research in the area of education. In addition, of course, to other disciplines and areas of life. How many Muslims are holding PhD and professors? Where is the school of thought of Muslims? We always refer to textbooks, theories of the West. I'm not saying we have to do away with them. No, we have to use them, to learn from them. But there must be an overall framework which we can compare. We have to have our own benchmark in order to be able to decide wisely what is useful and feasible and practical and impactful in our society, which leads us to success in this life and the life to come, to be happy in this life and the life to come. I don't want to dwell too much because we can discuss what, as I said, the story of Musa and Al-Khadr and the hadith of bankrupt next week, inshallah. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Prof, just want to make sure, is it tomorrow? Is it, Prof? Not next week?
Oh, no, so next week, tomorrow. Sorry. I'm confused because last time we used to have it
once a week.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yes, tomorrow, yes.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Prof, for your full 1 hour presentation. I really like your graph on RURAP, recite, read, understand, reflect, act, and deliver the benefit. I think these are the stages that we can see clearly how we can work it out. Alhamdulillah. And we look forward for tomorrow for these case studies of Surah about Prophet Musa and Khidir, and then the hadith, inshallah. We have few questions. Let me read it for you.
Yes.
First one by Brother Hussein, or let me Hussein first. I have a question. I think the implementation of this valuable approach should be conducted by scholars, whether in Islamic studies or Arabic language or both. For us as educators or teachers, we don't have the enough knowledge to apply it. What do you recommend us to do in this case?
Yes, I think I have recommended. What you have to do is to look at the translation, but don't make final judgment. Make your inferences, but you have to get some brothers with you and sisters so that you can work collectively, so you can correct each other. And then you can validate it and submit it to reviewers who knows Arabic as well and Islamic studies, but some classical scholars, traditional scholars, they won't help you. They will tell you about fiqh. Now we are talking about daily life in education. So you have to know some of the scholars who knows Arabic and educationists who, and there are a lot. I think Brother Shahran can give you a list of those brothers who are educationists but also knows Arabic. So to be some of the reviewers for your reference, but don't stop from reading at least translation from different, but not only one book, different translation of or tafsir, and also the explanation of hadith, old and new, because some of the new writers, they are relating to our context. So you have to have a group of people who are keen and also submit it to others to review.
Yeah, Prof. From Dr. Nur Ashikin about doing ijtihad for those who don't have Arabic background, how can handle it?
Yeah, the same question.
The
We are
same
not
question.
talking about ijtihad to give rulings, halal, haram. No. How to help ourselves design the curriculum. I mean, like, I have published a paper, how to design a curriculum based on this surah. Okay? How to design the curriculum. I'm not saying it is haram or halal. I'm just, drawing attention to our brother that there is a possibility of this. But I'm not saying it is final. Also, I have given to submitted to reviewers and so on. But at the same time, let us subject it to or conduct research and see whether it is useful or not. Why we conduct man-made research theories in the West and we don't accept Muslim theories? And so we have to be courageous. But we are not talking about ijtihad in the sense of fiqh, of giving rules haram and halal. No, we're not talking about fiqh. As a kind of recommendation. We are giving some sort of recommendation.
Prof, you said for tomorrow we should read Surah Al-Kahfi verse 66 to 80 what?
From 60 to 82.
Or 60 to 82, okay.
And hadith is the bankrupt hadith. It's very well known. If you search hadith bankrupt, you'll get it.
Okay, Allah, we'll find it.
So please read it, reflect on it, go through these 5 steps and see how can you do it.
Okay, we still have plenty of time actually, but we can also...
Yes, if there is some other questions or comments.
Yeah, comments, yeah.
Otherwise, I have something to offer.
Oh, okay, bro, go ahead.
Okay. So let me go through this ayah. From the reason of revelation, we can learn that a person might think and perceive himself as having sufficient knowledge, yet Allah is commanding us to continue learning. And this is an excellent principle for all learned men to learn till they die. Humility and humbleness are key virtues for the learner. The verse is related to adult education. Musa is a mature man, no age limit for learning. Learning is a continuous process. Musa is a learned man, yet still continue to learn. The learner can select the teacher. Musa traveled to meet Al-Khadr to learn. So we have maybe to create a system whereby students select the teacher. Okay? Why not? Why not? Process began with showing interest, request, because he was politely asking Musa to teach him, request and initiation from the learner. The request was made first by the word hal, me, I follow you. So the kind of respect and initiation from the side of Musa and direct to Al-Khadr. It was very polite request to show the respect of the learner to this teacher. All these are the virtues and manners of the learner. You can see how Islam is focusing more on the ethics and virtues. May I follow you? Here Musa showed his teacher that he is ready to follow his instructions. So we have to train our student to follow instructions. The learner showed his teacher that Al-Khadr is more knowledgeable than him. That is why he came to learn from him, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that he is more knowledgeable than him. Again, this is a part of the manner of the learner. The learner also showed his understanding that the source of knowledge is Allah. Mimma ullimt, from what you have been taught. The learner was clear about the aim of his learning before he started his learning, rushda. So he wants the outcome, he decided about the learning outcome. So we have to, students should know their learning outcome. Musa was very keen to use learning as guidance in his life. It indicates that in education for life and not for the sake of knowledge. Clear learning outcomes were clear to both the learner and the teacher. Both the teacher and the learner have the right to decide their needs of learning and teaching and their condition. So the student decided what he wants and he was negotiating with the teacher. The teacher put some condition, and tomorrow we will discuss this condition. There was clear roles and condition for both. So we have to spell out for our students in school and universities, what is the role of the lecturer, what is the role of the student, including the ethics. Education could be individual learning. The verb used here is simple present tense, which indicates that the continuous action that is learning is a continuous process. That is from Arabic language, because if you use simple present tense, it means continuous. The word ullimt indicates generic meaning, which could include all types of knowledge. However, in this story, all natural and social sciences were included. So you can see political science in the king who used to confiscate the ships, the poor people, economy, oceanography, the fish biology, and then you have the ship when he put a hole, so that physics, and you can say the wall, civil engineering, and you come to the treasure, that's economy. So all natural and social phenomena, social sciences are included in this story. So thus learning should include all types of knowledge, so long as they guide us to conduct our life more effectively and improve our, we need all these sciences in order to live happily. The main aim of learning is to help us and guide us in our life, that is to be beneficial. It took Musa a long time and effort to meet Al-Khadr, so learners have to make efforts and endure all challenges to learn. The learner has to be ready to make efforts and sacrifice his time, money, and be patient for the purpose of learning. Passion, commitment, respect for the teacher, humility, and making utmost effort to learn, and patience are all important for effective learning. Effective learning needs companionship of the teacher. Musa and Al-Khadr were together. Teaching and learning took place in the real life, with real life issues. We can argue that this is an authentic learning. It is not isolated in the classroom. So the learner has to show passion, keen interest, and love of learning. Learning is a continuous process and has no limit. Learner has to take the initiative to learn and approach the teacher. The learner has to be polite and show respect to the teacher. The learner has to avoid arrogance and show humility and humbleness. The learner has to show his readiness to learn. Both the learner and the teacher have to have a firm belief that the source of knowledge is Allah. The learner can select the teacher. The teacher can decide to accept, reject, or put condition for his teaching if he was requested to teach. The learner can decide his learning outcomes objectives. Objectives have to be clear for both the learner and the teacher, and they can negotiate them before they start. Objectives have to be beneficial for learner's life. The learner and the teacher can negotiate the roles and conditions of teaching and learning. Individual learning is one of the modes of learning. There is no limit for knowledge the learner can learn, so long as it is beneficial for the learner's life. Learning needs engagement and active participation from both the teacher and the learner. And the learning can take place in real life, and real life issues are the curriculum themes or topics. Authentic learning is very effective type of learning. So that's, I think, no need to discuss this. Do it, I said, don't wait. Form a team and adopt the model of RORAB to connect with Quran and Sunnah. Read, understand, reflect, act, deliver benefits. Remember the following two hadith. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa'. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from knowledge without benefits. Khairun nas anfa'uhum linnas. The best people are the most beneficial to others. Ask yourself, what is my impact in my community? What benefits I made for Muslim and humanity? Education means change and development of human beings, holistic personalities based on Islam. Start now, learn and generate knowledge, apply and deliver benefits. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much, Prof. We will go back to the verses. To this Al-Kahfi was 60 to 80, inshallah, and we will try our best. We will come back to you tomorrow, inshallah. Can you brief us a bit, Prof, about tomorrow's session so that we can prepare?
Yes, tomorrow's session we will be just discussing the story and what are the education inferences we make out of them, and also the hadith and how can we make education inferences from hadith. Just an example from Quran, example from hadith. So today we focused more on the theoretical part, the methodology and the context of education in Islam. And tomorrow we'll have some practical application of this methodology.
Thank you so much, Prof. I only have one announcement. We will issue a certificate in collaboration of IIUM. This is the work of Prof. Dawood, but the university requires us to submit the name and a few details of each participant. We have forwarded to you the online registration form. You can fill it now if you are sure you will join tomorrow, because you have to join both to get the certificate. Or in case you have problem, you can also watch on the YouTube or Facebook. We'll consider that as attending the class. We are not that particular. But we have to submit the particular of each one who attending the course. So inshallah, I also forward this link to our WhatsApp group. Inshallah, so that we can always communicate. So we will search for the hadith and I'll share it in the WhatsApp group so that we know which hadith that we are.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Prof. We'll see you tomorrow, same time at
Inshallah,
2:30.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Jazakumullah khair.
I will leave. I will leave this Zoom for 2-3 minutes. You just write your name, phone number, and email as a proof that you attended.